Welcome to Truth Behind History. This is the channel where we dive deep into the moments that shaped our world, unpacking stories from the past and uncovering the truths you might not have learned in school. This episode is all about libertarianism, a philosophy that's defined by the pursuit of liberty, individualism, and free markets. We'll take a journey from its Enlightenment era origins to its relevance in the digital age. Whether you've heard the term tossed around in politics or you're just curious about its roots, we've got a lot to explore. Let's dive into the truth behind libertarianism. Libertarianism is more than just a set of political ideas, it's a rich and evolving philosophy that spans centuries. At its heart is the pursuit of liberty and individualism, emphasizing personal freedom and minimal interference from authority. Its philosophical foundations trace back to the Enlightenment and classical liberalism, where the ideals of self-governance and economic freedom first took root. But libertarianism isn't just a relic of the past. It's a philosophy that's constantly adapting, evolving to meet the modern relevance of today's challenges, from the rise of technology to debates over personal autonomy. Let's break libertarianism down into its three core pillars. First, individual liberty. At its core, this means people should have the freedom to make their own choices about their lives, so long as those choices don't harm others. It's about self-determination and personal responsibility. Then, we have limited government. Libertarians argue that the role of the state should be minimal, just enough to protect rights like life and property, but not so much that it interferes in our daily lives. Lastly, free markets are essential to libertarian thought. The idea is that voluntary exchanges, driven by supply and demand, create prosperity better than any central authority could. Libertarianism's story is one of evolution. It begins with the Enlightenment roots of thinkers like John Locke and Adam Smith, who laid the groundwork for liberty and economic freedom. Moving into the 20th century resurgence, we see figures like Ayn Rand and Ludwig von Mises bringing these ideas back into focus during times of political and economic upheaval. And in today's world, libertarian ideas are at the forefront of modern political movements, from Ron Paul's grassroots campaigns to the rise of decentralized technologies like Bitcoin. It's a journey that connects the ideals of the past to the challenges of the present. The Enlightenment was a turning point in human thought, and it's where the foundation of libertarianism was laid. Take John Locke, for example. He championed the natural rights of life, liberty, and property, arguing that these rights were inherent and shouldn't be violated by governments. His idea of the social contract suggested that governments only have legitimacy if they protect these rights and operate with the consent of the governed. Then there's Adam Smith, whose book The Wealth of Nations introduced the concept of the invisible hand. Smith believed that when individuals pursue their own economic interests, it leads to societal prosperity, a revolutionary idea at the time. John Locke's contributions are monumental. First, his emphasis on natural rights, the idea that certain rights are inherent to all humans and can't be taken away. These include life, liberty, and property. His social contract theory transformed the way we think about government, suggesting that political power isn't divine but instead granted by the people it governs. Finally, his influence stretches far beyond his time, inspiring everything from the American Declaration of Independence to modern-day movements that fight for individual freedom. Adam Smith wasn't just an economist, he was a visionary. In The Wealth of Nations, he described the invisible hand of the market, where individuals pursuing their self-interest unknowingly benefit society as a whole. Smith also championed economic freedom, arguing that markets flourish when governments take a hands-off approach. His legacy? Smith's ideas laid the groundwork for modern economics and remain central to libertarian thought, proving that economic prosperity and personal liberty go hand in hand. The Enlightenment wasn't just about Locke and Smith, it was a broader intellectual revolution. Voltaire, for example, was a fierce advocate for freedom of speech and religion, believing that open dialogue and tolerance were crucial for a free society. Montesquieu, on the other hand, focused on separation of powers, proposing that government should have checks and balances to prevent tyranny. These ideas created a fertile ground for libertarian principles to grow, emphasizing the need for individual freedoms and limited, accountable governance. Classical liberalism was the 18th and 19th centuries' answer to authoritarian rule. It emphasized individual rights and minimal government, but it faced criticism during the Industrial Revolution for not addressing inequality. This criticism led to a transition. Classical liberalism evolved into modern libertarianism, which expanded its focus to include personal freedoms beyond just property rights. It was a philosophy reborn, adapting to new economic and social realities while staying true to its roots. The 19th century was a time of rapid change, and with it came challenges. The Industrial Revolution transformed economies but also highlighted issues of worker exploitation and economic disparity. Libertarianism was forced to grapple with questions about how to balance freedom with fairness. Figures like Frederick Douglass expanded the conversation, fighting for abolition and equal rights and showing that liberty wasn't just an economic issue, it was a human one. Laissez-faire economics became a cornerstone of libertarianism in the 19th century. Herbert Spencer emerged as a leading voice, advocating for minimal state interference in both personal and economic affairs. He argued that competition and self-regulation were essential for societal progress. At the same time, Spencer was a staunch opponent of collectivism, believing that individual enterprise was the engine of innovation and prosperity. The transition to the 20th century brought new challenges to classical liberalism. The economic shifts of the time, including the Great Depression and rising central planning, forced thinkers to re-evaluate libertarian ideals. This re-evaluation sparked a 20th century resurgence, where classical ideas were adapted to tackle modern issues. As these ideas gained traction, they started shaping global policies and debates, influencing everything from free market economics to human rights movements. Libertarianism was no longer just a Western idea, it became a global force. The 20th century saw the revival of libertarian thought, largely driven by two intellectual titans, Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek. Mises criticized socialism, arguing that central planning led to inefficiencies and stifled innovation. Hayek's The Road to Serfdom warned against government overreach, emphasizing that economic control often leads to the erosion of individual freedoms. These ideas gained momentum during times of economic crises, as people sought alternatives to centralized systems. Libertarian principles became a beacon for those advocating for free markets and personal liberty. Few figures have left as distinct a mark on libertarianism as Ayn Rand. Through her philosophy of objectivism, Rand celebrated rational self-interest and individualism, arguing that personal happiness and achievement are the highest moral goals. Her novel Atlas Shrugged became a manifesto for libertarian ideals, exploring the dangers of collectivism and the importance of creative freedom. Rand's work shaped debates on capitalism, framing it not just as an economic system but as a moral imperative for human flourishing. The Chicago School of Economics played a pivotal role in advancing libertarian thought, with Milton Friedman at its helm. Friedman was a staunch advocate for minimal government intervention in markets, arguing that too much regulation stifled economic growth. The school's emphasis on economic freedom demonstrated how market deregulation could lead to overall prosperity. The global influence of the Chicago School is undeniable, shaping policies not only in the United States but also in countries transitioning from centralized economies to market-driven ones. In 1971, the Libertarian Party was established as an alternative to the two-party system in the U.S. Its core principles focused on minimal government, individual rights, and economic freedom. However, the party faced significant early challenges, including limited visibility and difficulty gaining traction in a political landscape dominated by Democrats and Republicans. Despite this, the Libertarian Party carved out a space for itself as a voice for those who felt unrepresented by mainstream politics. Libertarianism isn't just a political philosophy, it's woven into the fabric of pop culture. In literature, novels like Atlas Shrugged and George Orwell's 1984 resonate with libertarian themes of individualism and resistance to authoritarianism. In media, podcasts, blogs, and YouTube channels bring these ideas to new audiences, often with a modern twist. Libertarian principles also find their way into public discourse, shaping political debates and cultural conversations, proving that these ideas remain relevant and compelling. Ron Paul is often seen as the modern face of libertarianism in American politics. Through his campaigns, he championed civil liberties, non-interventionism, and sound money policies, ideas that struck a chord with a disillusioned electorate. His efforts sparked a youth movement, energizing a new generation of libertarian-minded voters. Paul's legacy lies in his ability to turn libertarian ideals into actionable political activism, inspiring a wave of modern libertarian leaders and movements. The digital age has brought libertarianism into a new era. Decentralization, as seen with movements like Bitcoin, reflects libertarian ideals of autonomy and resistance to centralized control. Digital media, including podcasts and online platforms, has amplified libertarian voices, enabling them to reach global audiences. This shift has given libertarianism a global influence, as ideas of freedom and limited government spread rapidly through digital networks, reshaping how people think about governance in the 21st century. Today's libertarian movement is supported by prominent figures and institutions. Dave Smith uses his platform as a comedian and commentator to popularize libertarian ideas in mainstream media. Organizations like the Cato Institute advocate for limited government and personal liberty, while the Mises Institute focuses on Austrian economics and the philosophical underpinnings of libertarian principles. Together, these voices and institutions help keep libertarian ideas relevant in modern debates. Of course, libertarianism is not without its challenges. Internally, there are divisions between purists who want no government intervention and pragmatists who advocate for incremental change. Externally, libertarian economic and social policies often face criticism, with skeptics questioning their feasibility. Despite these hurdles, libertarianism remains globally relevant, as its principles are adapted to address localized issues while still adhering to universal values of freedom and individual rights. The legacy of libertarianism is both philosophical and practical. It continues to inspire debates on freedom and governance and shapes global movements that advocate for policies rooted in individual rights and limited government. Its adaptability ensures that libertarianism evolves with societal changes, remaining relevant in a rapidly changing world. The future of libertarianism depends on its ability to adapt. This means exploring new ways to address modern challenges while staying true to core principles. It involves engaging globally to foster dialogue on universal freedoms and empowering individuals to innovate and take responsibility for their lives. Libertarianism's strength lies in its ability to evolve without losing sight of its foundational ideals. As we look ahead, libertarianism's enduring values of freedom, individual rights, and limited government remain as relevant as ever. Its potential to shape the future lies in addressing emerging global issues through the lens of liberty. By inspiring new generations to champion these ideals, libertarianism continues to thrive as a philosophy that stands for human flourishing and personal responsibility. That wraps up our journey through the history and evolution of libertarianism. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the philosophy of liberty, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Truth Behind History. Share your thoughts below. What do you think about the relevance of libertarianism today? And if you love exploring ideas that shaped our world, check out our other videos. Until next time, stay curious and keep uncovering the truth behind history.